Sports today. Nice to see everybody.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Williams with
Ehsan Kassim.
and welcome to another episode of our midweek show, Seminole Script, with the Tallahassee Democrat and Knoll Sports. And we'll just jump into it now.
Back from our bye week.
Back from the bye week. Oh my God, I almost said Clemson. Back from the bye week. It's been a whole week. Before that was Clemson. Now we're heading into Virginia Tech. Let's just jump back and talk about Clemson a little bit. How are you feeling coming out that game now? Almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that was regardless of what people say about Clemson, that was a good win on the road. Getting the monkey off the back, first win in 10 years in Clemson at Death Valley. It was a noon game. It was a little different. A lot of pregame festivities that were a lot, but it was a fun environment. We got to be in the open crowd, and that was one of the loudest stadiums I've ever been in. That was fun. They were loud. The crowd noise simulation was still nothing compared to it.
Yeah, I don't know. Crowd noise simulation
it was a fun environment. It was a fun game. Clemson at different points looked like they were going to beat Florida State, but Florida State did not give up. Down 10-0. It was 10-0, I think, right? Down 17-7 right before the halftime, and they got back. And at one point, it looked like it was going to be a Clemson 2-touchdown lead, and Kalen DeLoach made a huge play that changed the game.
Almost a silencer play just for the defense as well. It was a very strange game, and just the defense had kind of a slower start, then really picked it up at the second half, and then the offense kind of flipped into that kind of inconvenient place towards the end. But at the end, everything kind of just came together for them, and they won. Just a thriller, as you said. It was just a great experience, just from the perspective of us and where we're sitting and getting to experience the game. It's just a fun, as you mentioned, great experience as well. It's just a great game too. It's a game that lived up to all the hype as well. Ended in overtime. Keon Coleman continuing just to ball out. Guy's just been an unbelievable addition to Florida State this year. But it was an exciting game. However, there was a lot to take away from it at the same time too. Would that be correct?
Yes. I mean, Florida State still clearly has some kinks to work out, especially on the road. They've, won by a combined 9 points on the road. Did not look like the offense scored 20. Like, if you look at it, 24 points against pretty good defense. So you do have questions about how good this team is, elite this team is. I guess not good, but how elite this team is. Obviously, you've seen them fall in the AP and the U.S. coaches poll 2 weeks in a row. They were number 3. They're 5 in the coaches poll now. They fell from 4 to 5 to the AP poll. So there are still questions about Florida State, but they've passed the 2 biggest tests so far. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were talking about it in the beginning of the year multiple times that Clemson and LSU were going to be the biggest games in that first half of the year as well. Going in the second half, things have changed in the AP polls and all that stuff throughout that time too as well. I mean, we saw Duke kind of come out of nowhere as well, and despite them having a loss, they are still a very strong team in the ACC. You have Miami, who's big up and coming, and then Florida is always. I mean, those 2 games are always going to be good games no matter what.
And then the Duke game, the equations changed a little bit because Hamilton went down with his knee injury. I guess it was knee injury, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know if he's going to be available for that game. If he is, how much he's going to be able to do, because he might be limited, because that's only 3 weeks off the injury. So Florida State didn't play week 5, but they had some major implications in that game with Hamilton getting hurt, Syracuse going down to to Clemson, and then UNC and Syracuse playing this week, which will probably determine when the Florida State-Syracuse game is next week at home, which we're jumping ahead a little bit. So
yeah, we'll focus on now. I mean, the big thing that was emphasized during the bye week and then into this week, there were 2 major things that they talked about, specifically the offense. It was the rushing game getting going again, and then converting on third downs. Would you agree that those were the 2 major things that were emphasized by Coach Norvell?
Yes, I mean, we saw in practice today, going to practice today, we saw that there was a heavy emphasis. They did so many drills today out of third down. It's very huge focus for them this week because third downs, they've struggled offensively and defensively. I don't have the offensive numbers in front of me, but they're not one of the top teams in the nation. But defense, Boston College, they were 8-19 against Clemson. They struggled third down as well. They couldn't get off the field. So it's a huge point of emphasis, because if you can't get off the field on third down and you can't stay on the field on third down, you're not going to run many plays. And when you can't run many plays with Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson,
1 + 1 = 2 in that situation, essentially, as well. And I mean, the Clemson game was really kind of it was kind of an exclamation point, kind of like, hey, this might be an issue when we talked about the rushing game as well. They only had rushed for about 25 yards.
22 yards. So I think that was one of my biggest concerns coming into the game we talked about is Florida State can be able to run against Clemson. If they're not, how are they going to win? I mean, obviously they won without a rushing game, which is hilarious because, last year they ran for 200 yards against Clemson and lost.
Yeah.
This year they ran for 22 yards against Clemson and won. So make it make sense, but
exactly.
But they were not able to get their run game going. I think you had in your article, Trey Benson was the only one that had
He's the only player that rushed for over 3 yards,
which is nuts,
which is insane, honestly.
But I think Dabo talked about that he wanted to take away Jordan's running lanes, which in turn took away some of the running lanes from other players. And Florida State was obviously Jordan Travis. You did a story about that after the game. Jordan Travis felt disrespected by the one-on-one coverage, but that's Florida State's offense. You got to take something away, and Clemson chose the run game, and they kind of picked correctly because Florida State's offense was not as crisp, did not look as good. They struggled for most of the game, and they won in overtime, where Clemson's offense is not as potent, was able to keep up with them.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that we've seen throughout the season. Clemson made the decision, like you mentioned, too, just kind of reiterating what you just said. They kind of made this decision as well to take away the running game instead of taking away one of the big wide receivers as well. Hence the double coverage and the comment that Jordan Travis had made. They let Keon and Johnny do their thing, but they took that rushing game out from that. Kind of showed to be an Achilles heel a little bit. At the same time, Florida State won the game. So
against the hardest, best defense I've probably faced this year. So.
Yeah, at the same time too. Yeah, they won the game. They're still undefeated at the same time as well. But things haven't been exactly perfect. But the record's still perfect. But we're going into this week right now. Anything that's really stood out to you this Wednesday practice that we are just coming off of?
I mean, we talked about the third downs. We talked about Norvell talked about the defense starting faster. It's kind of a point of emphasis this week for him. So it's gonna be interesting to see if they actually do that a little bit more now, because the defense, if you look against LSU, they drove down, didn't score, but they took a goal line set, but they drove all the way down on the first drive. Southern Miss, I don't remember exactly, but against Boston College, they scored down, went and scored on their first 2 drives, and Boston College took so much time off the clock and kept Florida State on the field. Florida State's second drive did not happen until like 10 minutes left in the second quarter in that Boston College game, which, hey, you've already won half the battle for getting the offense off the field and not getting a rhythm. And then against Clemson scored on their first drive. Florida State responded to a field goal, but then Clemson responded to another field goal. So it was 10-3 after 2 drives off. So the defense, Florida State does not mind deferring into the second half so they get the ball, because I know Norvell's big on, and we saw it in the game, is they get the ball to end the half and start the half. That's something they love doing, because that's 14 points or 10 points that you could just change in the scoreboard right away. So I don't think they're going to change their plan on deferring. So a lot of times if they win the toss, they're going to start in defense. So the defense has got to make some stops and make sure the offense gets in the field a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's about setting the tone, and that was a really big thing that Norvell emphasized today. Just think about emphasizing that. They're coming off of the bye week, very energized. I'm very interested to see what the response is going to be on Saturday. Norvell's talking about how energetic and explosive is the word he's been using. Yeah. We're talking about how explosive the practices have been since the bye week. I think this was a good, just refreshing period for them as well. Maybe we can see a more complete games from them the second half of the season. I think this bye week, in my opinion, is doing a lot of good for them. They seem very mentally refreshed coming into practice as well. We also are seeing we got some updates about some guys that have been injured throughout the year, and Norvell feels confident about them. Chicago Douglas is one of the names as well. Kentron Poiter was another name. Keem Dent's another name, and then I think I'm missing one.
Robert Scott.
Robert Scott's another name as well too. He talked about their progression coming on as well. A lot of could be seeing. Florida State could be seeing some guys coming back soon. Talking about the way that Norvell talked about these guys and their practice and stuff, and we saw them get involved too.
Yeah, no, starting with Ja'Kai Douglas. He was listed as a third or starter along with Winston Wright and Destin Hill, still a slot wide receiver, and we have not seen anyone win that job. I mean, that is also something that Norvell does play a lot more, 21% with Morlock and Bell, but no one's really won that slot role yet. No one's made a huge impact in the slot role. So it could be something that Ja'Kai Douglas, it's there for taking. He could take that spot. Norvell actually sounded more enthusiastic to talk about Kentron and his return. So that could be interesting. That could help maybe spell Johnny and Keon a little bit, get them, another big body on the field at receiver, and maybe spell Keon and Johnny a little bit, make sure they're a little more fresh throughout the game.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Robert Scott would be huge because the offensive line has struggled a little bit in run blocking. Pass blocking has been good, but the run blocking has been more questionable. And then obviously Keem Dent we've seen what the secondary looks like without him. We have the one game sample size of how they performed against LSU. Then Clemson and maybe the third down defense improves because you're not allowing deep shots or missing tackles, which is going to key because Akeem Dent is a more short tackler. He's good in coverage, so getting him back this week, if he's back this week, would be huge.
Yeah, a lot of big additions. If these guys come back, I don't know if they do or don't, or what their timeline is. Norvell, the timeline kind of gave us was they're close. He feels like some of the guys are close. I think he mentioned that Kentron, he feels like, is a lot closer as well. And that would be, as you mentioned, that would be a huge addition as well. We saw what he could do in the spring showcase as well, and it would take some pressure off of Johnny and Keon as well.
And in one player, I don't think he's talked about this week, but that we've seen in practice of doing more is, was out for a few weeks. Brock Lynn.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's been doing more, so we don't have a status on him, but there's a chance if it's a blowout game in the second half, maybe we see him, maybe we see AJ Duffy. We probably will see Tate Rodmaker, so it could be interesting.
It's an interesting game that sets up for sure. I guess what have we heard so far about Virginia Tech that Florida State has reiterated over to us about what they are planning for?
They don't miss assignments, they don't miss tackles, they complete tackles, which is something Florida State should watch and learn from. But the run game, I think they were 100 times in the nation coming into this week, but you look at last week where they limited Pittsburgh to 38 rushing yards, so it is a point of emphasis that they're looking at to make sure they don't struggle in that aspect. Because Florida State really needs to get the run game going this week, and it looks like an opportune time. If everyone's healthy, if everyone looks good, they should be able to get the run game going. I have not looked at the tape out if they did something different first 4 weeks versus last week to stop the run, but as Alex Atkins pointed out, Pittsburgh did have some injuries up front. So that could have been a factor as well, but Pittsburgh's also not very good.
Yeah, at the same time, Pittsburgh's not the best team in the ACC right now, but at the same time, I think, a lot of the coaches and the coordinators kind of emphasized too that it looks like things were kind of connecting for Virginia Tech in that game as well. They're 2-3 right now.
2-3, 1-0 in the ACC.
1-0 in the ACC, 2-3 right now. So we might see that might have been a moment where things have started to turn around for Virginia Tech, right, in that Pittsburgh game. So they are an aggressive team, they're a physical team.
And then you mentioned physical. They have a quarterback who can, run a little bit, which is giving Florida State some issues this year.
Yeah, I mean they have a quarterback that doesn't fit the usual quarterback stature to say the least. I believe he's 6'2", 6'3", and about 230, 240 pounds. So he's a bigger guy.
Hard to bring down, probably.
Yeah, and he keeps his numbers pretty consistent too. He's only played in 3 full games so far, so he has his rushing numbers and his passing numbers balanced out pretty well. So this is a guy that's shown that, like you said, he could be a dual threat or a rushing quarterback, which you had mentioned that Florida State has struggled with a little bit before, but should be an interesting game either way. Florida State is back home, so that could play a factor as well. It kind of could give us a better look at how Florida State has been doing on the road versus at home. We kind of have we'll have a larger sample size now because it's been kind of weird because it's been the Southern Miss game's been at home, and then the Orlando game, which was neutral site, but it was home, and then you had 2 away games, and now with this home slate coming up, we're kind of gonna get a better look at what Florida State looks like at home. But
3 straight home games, not dropping.
Yeah, no, it's nice for us. We get to stay here in Tallahassee. But Kassim, where can they find us?
Tallahassee.com, No Sports, and No Sports Football, particularly for football. And obviously, that does not mean that we don't have other coverage. I did a feature on men's and women's basketball. Sat down with Brooke Wyckoff and Ron Hamilton this past week and previewed their season. They started practices the past couple weeks, and then we got availability with Link Jarrett yesterday. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess by the time this comes out, Tuesday.
2 days ago. Yeah.
Tuesday. And I will have a story on that, just about how they're progressing, how they're looking. And then obviously Jack is doing some great things with covering soccer. They have a couple games this week.
They do, playing Boston College on Sunday. This comes out on Thursday, so they will be playing Louisville today. That's weird to say, but
at Louisville,
at Louisville, yeah.
Sundays at home.
Yeah, and then they have a long slate that's coming up of Thursday games that they're gonna be at home as well. So it's gonna be nice just to have a lot of the athletics at home coming up.
Thursday night football.
Saturday football. But yeah, that's where you can find us. Also, it's gonna be Thursday when this comes out too. We will have a Twitter space live on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call that app with the X or the what used to be a bird that was on it. You can find us on there at 6 p.m. We'll be talking to David Cunningham, who covers Virginia Tech. He's a big expert. I've been connected with him for a long time. He's kind of a celebrity in the sports journalism community, but he's a great guy. We'll be talking to him at 6 p.m. Previewing the game as well. So if you want to join into that, that is 6 p.m. on Thursday today when this comes out. But yeah, that's all I got. And we will see you guys Saturday.